Hello, James. Thank you so much for being part of the interview.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You know, I'm so excited to have you on our show today because you are a pioneer in terms of bringing technology and creative art together, you and your crew of crazy, funny people. And I'm really thrilled that our audience is going to get a chance to know, who has been behind some of the amazing open source technology fun out there. And you guys have done amazing work, so I'm super happy to have you here.
It's my pleasure.
Great. Hello everyone, my name is Susan Lee MacDonald and welcome back to the interview. Today we have world-renowned James Powderly. He is an innovator extraordinaire, and you're going to get to hear all about the fantastic stories that he has to tell about technology, creative art, and his life here in Korea. So let's get a chance to interview James today.
James Powderly is a new media artist who combines art with science to open new horizons. With only $50, James Powderly created the EyeWriter, an eye movement recognition device that sent a message of hope to the world by helping a paralyzed artist reclaim the joys of communication and creation. Powderly, who is currently working on a Korean version of the EyeWriter, was also behind LED throwaways, LED messages that create instant light art, and laser tagging, sending social messages via laser graffiti on urban buildings. His work has pioneered new fronts in urban artistic communication. Powderly was fascinated by music and computers from a young age, and his passions found a perfect combination of science and art when he worked for a project for NASA. Join me, Susan Lee MacDonald, and hear his fantastic story on this week's The Interview.
You know, you have a very kind of colorful past, from what I understand. You have worked with NASA, you have worked with music, you have been imprisoned in China, you have met the love of your life here in Korea. You've got such an eclectic and interesting history. If you had to choose one thing to say, this is me, what would that be?
Well, that would normally be tough, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to be a daddy. So, yeah,
Congratulations.
it's my life's work.
What can you say about the idea of becoming a father? There must be so many things running through your head because of that.
I don't know, I'm an amateur, but I definitely appreciate that my parents were pretty good at being parents, and they encouraged me to do really everything that I wanted to do. And my father in particular pushed me to study computers even when I just wanted to be a rock and roll musician or a skateboarder. He said, just mix in the Commodore 64 that we bought in there. And
oh my gosh, I had a Commodore 64.
You had a Commodore 64? Oh, it's a beautiful machine.
And
with the
first
cassette.
Atari too, yes.
I had a tape drive. This was amazing, But my dad ended up being right that computer became like a big part of my life in a way that no kid thinks, oh, I can't wait to go home and program a computer in BASIC. But that work that I did then helped me to become the not that great programmer I am today. You
are known for being one of the innovators for an incredible project known as the EyeWriter. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the EyeWriter and why it's become such a phenomenal success?
Well, yeah, okay, so the EyeWriter is this piece of technology that a group of 5, 6, 7 of us made, friends of mine and colleagues that I'd worked with over the year, as well as strangers that we met, that was designed to help just one man named Tony, a graffiti artist. His graffiti name is Tim Quan. Sort of superhero name is Tim Quan. And it was designed just to be able to help Tony draw again, because he'd been an artist his entire life, quite talented artist, and that was taken away from him when he was diagnosed, I think, 2003 with Lou Gehrig's disease, also known as ALS. So he couldn't move his legs, his hands, his feet. He couldn't even eat or breathe, not talk. So his eyes were the only interface. So we were introduced through some friends of his and a production firm in Los Angeles called the Ebling Group gave us a little bit of money. You know, here's some plane tickets, and this is all the money we can afford. See what you can do. And so we made a device that allowed Tony to again be able to draw. And then over time, other people have taken it and improved upon it.
Wow.
The idea was open source, so you know, they could do what they wanted, and it just snowballed. And so what started with 5 people ended up being hundreds, and a company the size of Samsung working on making technology, not just creative technology, but essential communication and navigating maps and things like this. So, you know, we just made seeds in the ground, and then, you know, the internet and, you know, human hearts, you know, did the rest.
Yeah. How does the EyeWriter actually work? Could you explain it in kind of layperson terms? Because I'm not super tech savvy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple device, honestly. There's a few variations of it, but the basic idea is that you put a camera so that it can see your eyeball. And then you point infrared LEDs, and when they shine onto the eyeball, they cause the pupil to stand out from the background to the rest of the eye. So then you just track that darker spot as it moves around the frame. And there's some math that kind of makes it match up with the screen. But if you track that eyeball around, you can start to calibrate it to where that eye is looking on the computer monitor.
Wow.
And then the rest was just recreating interfaces that exist now in software, you know, we use all the time, like Photoshop or Illustrator, but they're not designed for an eye. An eye is like not like a mouse pointer, you know. It needs a bigger button, basically. So then the programmers who worked on designing the interface, Theo Watson and Chris Sergru and Zach Lieberman, they made bigger buttons, and they made new interfaces so that they could, you know, roll over and look at a button, and that would make another menu pop up, and you know, so they kind of had to invent with Tony a way to draw with your eye.
Wow.
And then he's been able to make, you know, the graffiti artwork he made before, but also new things that, you know, no one had ever thought to make, like a font. Only the first font, human font, made with the eye.
Wow.
So all eye-drawn font. And many other really cool projects.
That's so wild.
My collaborator, Evan Roth, translated this into 3-dimensional designs, too, that could be printed out. One of our collaborators named Golan Levin converted it to machine instructions so that his eyes could control a robot arm. So with his eye, he could actually physically paint again with this sort of surrogate machine. It's amazing that all this is possible, and it's not even that hard, and it's actually not that expensive either.
With your EyeWriter project, well, you worked with a number of people to create that EyeWriter project. You also came to Korea to do some work with the EyeWriter project, is that right?
I was living in Korea at the time, and I was giving a presentation at a technology forum, and a group of audience members came up to me after the talk, and they said, you know, hello, we've seen a TED talk about this device, the EyeWriter, and at our company we became interested in it, and in our free time we started just playing around with it. And at some point their company noticed that they actually made a cool project. And so they said, you know, you don't have to just do this in your spare time. Why don't you do this for your job, for a few months at least? And they said, well, you know, I don't know that it can make money. And the company said, we don't care, you know, this is good work. So they took me to their company and to look at it, which turned out to be Samsung. And they'd invented a Korean version of the EyeWriter called the iCan. And so theirs is much more about human communication in general.
I see.
Versus ours, which was much more about artistic endeavor. But, you know, being more talented programmers, they had made really smart decisions and improved the hardware design in some simple ways that made a big difference. And so it's nice to see that, you know, even a giant company is willing to take the time sometimes to work on projects that have no financial bottom line, but just have a social bottom line. And I think in collaboration with a group called Design Dive, they're going to put 1,000 EyeWriters into patients' hands.
Wow.
Sometime this year. So
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, up to that point, maybe 10 people in the world had EyeWriters, and now suddenly an order of magnitude bigger. So
James, you mentioned that you came to Korea in 2010. And was it the Tech Forum that brought you? What actually brought you here? And
Seoul Digital Forum was the first trip.
Yep.
Oh. Yeah, I stayed in the Walker Hill Hotel for 3 days, monsoon season.
Oh no.
But it was amazing. Yeah, it was the fanciest 3 days of my life. The only time I've ever flown business class.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my initial idea about Korea was just that Korea was like a really wealthy country where everyone knew your name and there was an amazing buffet every morning.
So what was it that, that you thought the second time you came to Korea? Did you anticipate that you would actually live here?
Well, I mean, I didn't specifically think, you know, one day I'm going to spend the rest of my life cleaning diapers in this country. But I did love it. And I worked with a curator named Shin Bo-soo, and she's a curator at the Total Museum, and she was very, let's just say, she encouraged us to get into trouble. For instance,
what do you mean?
We were doing a project at that point called laser tag, where you could draw on buildings with a laser and write whatever you wanted, and we'd let the public write anything they wanted. And this was during the time of the anti-beef protest, and there's protests about Dokdo, and a young woman had gotten killed at the DMZ. So the streets were like alive with protest activity, and we were thinking, where do we go to project? What's a nice big building? And so she took us right to Gwanghwamun, and she said, what about this building? She says, it's called the Chosun Ilbo, you know? And I was like, really?
That's the Chosun newspaper, one of the top 3 newspapers in Korea.
So we did. We set up and we projected on it, and people came by, and protesters wrote things, and normal people wrote things, and you know, the police never stopped us. They came, they saw what we were doing, and they thought, okay, no harm done, and so they left. But I realize now what a, you know, dangerous, potentially, you know, controversial scene that could have been. But so I thought, wow, like, you know, the Korean art scene is kind of edgy, and the professionals working here have a lot of integrity, and they do. And so this was one of my initial attractions. It's also different from, you know, in Japan you show up for the show and they've already installed your exhibition, and you're like, what? You know, and, you know, you ask them for whatever you want and they say, yes, you know, hi, which is no, you know. But in Korea it's not like this. If they don't like it, they're like, no, you know. And then also they make you do work. But they encouraged us to do good work, you know, so they really pushed us to do something new and try new things. And it's always been this way that, you know, we would come with an idea and they would say, how about a little more, you know? We're like, oh, okay, you know. So my work was better here, and I always had fun.
So you were born in Tennessee, and so a good old Southern boy, and your passion growing up was kind of a myriad of things, including music, in which you later majored, yes?
Yeah, yeah. You know, Tennessee is it's the countryside. You know, it's like a similar vibe to maybe gelato here, you know? Food, family, trees, cows. And I had all these things as a kid. And early on, I started singing in a choir, and that wasn't super cool, but you know, I learned to love music, and then picked up the guitar at some point.
Was your family very musical? Your parents, were they in the choir as well? Did they compose music, or just
I can hear my mom's voice right now in my head being like, James, you better tell him that your mom can sing. She sang in the choir her whole life. And she could. My mom's was a good singer.
I like your little Southern twang.
Yeah, that's my natural voice. I'm faking this.
Really?
No. So yeah, my mom was a singer, and she did encourage me, you know, when I got invited to be involved in this traveling choir, to sing and to sing in church and things. So, you know, music was a part of my life. My father had his amazing record collection.
Oh, yeah.
Original Beatles, all the original Beatles albums, original Hendrix albums.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I think I sold these at, like, you know, used record stores for like $5 so I could eat a little bit more in college. But yeah, so my neighbors played instruments. One played the bass and one played the drums. And I said, I want to play the bass too. And my friend was like, no, I play the bass, you play the guitar. And I was like, okay, I play the guitar. And then I've done that for how many years now? Wow, over 20. I'm old. But yeah, and this helped me get into college, and became one of those things that, you know, still, you know, while my wife sits with her belly like this, and I play my guitar for my kid and sing really poorly, she's gonna come out like loving bad singer-songwriter tunes. It
can only get better from there.
Yeah. Well,
so with your guitar playing, not only to your wife, but, you know, back in the day, did you ever form kind of an official band with your friends and make cassette tapes too?
Oh God. Yes. I will say cassette tape. Yes.
Okay.
We published the first CD at any of the local band scene in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in a band called Smack Driven Driver. It's not a drug reference, but yeah, somehow. So this band SDD, we played a lot when I was young, and it did give me a taste for performing and being in front of people, and you know, the feeling of being in front of an audience is great, you know. And then artists oftentimes lose that feeling, you know, because they work for a gallery exhibition or they work for a critique in the newspaper or something. So I was lucky that my whole art career went in the direction of this performing arts. So, you know, we would perform our projects like laser tag or LED throwaways in front of these large groups of people. And it was that same feeling of everyone kind of getting into the show.
And feeling the energy from the crowd, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, of course, with the Graffiti Research Lab projects, usually the audience was actually doing the performing, and I was just standing in front of them taking the credit, which was a great gig.
So tell me about that gap between music school or getting your undergrad, your music major, to the Graffiti Research Lab. There's been some NASA in there. There's been
it's a weird gap.
The Honeybee Technologies and.
Yeah. So, yeah, I went to the University of Tennessee, and I studied music theory and composition, and I had a really cool teacher named Peter Temko, who's still a teacher somewhere, teaching people how to play the clarinet. And Dr. Temko made us all get email accounts, you know, back when email was like just a tiny window on the computer. You log into Pine and
that was way before Google or Yahoo or any of those companies.
Gosh, that's a long time ago. What is wrong with me? What have I done with my life?
You've done quite a lot, actually.
So then we got these accounts, and I loved it. I liked the technology, and he gave me a chance to run the computer music lab. I was a much better fixer of computers than I was a performer on the guitar or a music theorist. So I got into graduate school for this type of work, using computers to make music and creative things.
And that was at NYU?
And so I moved from the, I packed my bags and I went to the big city. And, I loved it there. And I had a good time at NYU, and I met a lot of people and ended up staying in New York City for 10 years. But after I got out of school, I wasn't a much better artist than when I had started. But I'd become quite good with computers and programming them badly, but fast.
Tell me about after NYU, and how did you get involved in working with NASA robotics?
Yeah. At NYU, I was a mediocre media artist and designer, but I think I was at least above average with the technology that I learned. And I enjoyed it a lot. And so I went in that tech direction, and I became really interested in robots. So I started a New York chapter of this Robotics Society of America called RSA. And at some point we had to have an event, and I invited a company I'd heard of called Honeybee Robotics. And it was just a small mom and pop company that I knew had made a cool robot to fix the inside of the steam pipes that run underneath New York City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's lots of steam power still in New York, and it's very hot, obviously, inside of these pipes. So they made robots that would crawl through and fix them.
Wow.
And so I'd read about this in the Times or something. And so I invited them to come speak, and discovered they were working on cool projects for NASA and lots of other robots to explore planets or to, grab mines and defuse them, in combat situations. So I thought, oh, this is a very interesting company, and I want to get a job there as an intern. And so I applied, and they turned me down, and I just kept coming to the door, and I made really good friends with the HR person there. And she just, kept saying, I'll try. And I kept knocking, and she really politely, try again, and I kept knocking, and this went on for so long. She just became really annoyed and said, please give this guy something. And so someone put me on the task. They said, could you program this system that would help test this robot that we're working on that's part of the Mars exploration rover? You would need to program it in this language called MATLAB. Do you know this language? And I said, well, I really know that language well. And so...
And did you?
Of course, I'd never heard of it before at all. So I went home that night, and I just started reading about MATLAB, and I went to the store and bought a book, and read it over the course of the night, and I stayed up all night, and I came in the next morning, and I just worked really hard. It turns out it wasn't that difficult to program it in, and before the end of the week, I had made something, and I think they appreciated my effort. They thought it was adorable, this idiot trying to become a robot engineer. And so they gave me other little jobs. And I stayed there for a few years. It was a small company, and they were in the middle of launching their first robot to outer space.
Wow.
And it was a part of the Mars exploration rover. It was the hand, the grinder on the end of the arm, called the rock abrasion tool. And so after this project, the company just grew and grew. And by the time I left, I was the interim director of the technology development group.
Wow.
So, they kind of took me from being an idiot to being an idiot with a really big title. And I loved it. And I only left because, there was other things I wanted to do, and I wanted to reapproach the arts again and see what it would be like now that I had some actual skill, what I could make if I was given a chance to just sit around and imagine things.
As someone who is very much into technology, as you have been for a good part of your career, it's not typical to see a technology-centric person be very artistic too, and to also combine that work together. And with your graffiti research lab, and the FAT work that you've done, you've been able to basically have synergy of both of those things. How does it feel to be able to do two things that you really love to do simultaneously?
Yeah, have my cake and eat it too. Well, I mean, for a lot of us, it just feels like the way things are. But I mean, I do think it's a little bit of a unacknowledged fact that a lot of really highly technical people are also artistic, musical, specifically musical. You know, people like J.C.R. Licklider, you know, who was one of the guy who first said, you know, we should connect these computers together, you know, in the 60s. His background was in psychology and psychoacoustics, so how people perceive sounds. Really amazing people like Alan Kay, who invented the graphical user interface, and pretty much came up with the idea for the iPad, but you know, he did this in the 60s and 70s. He was like a really talented amateur jazz guitarist. You know, so you know, people do these creative things, and that creativity is obviously a part of the work in science, because you know, science is not just this stepwise process where you walk towards facts, knocking down obstacles. Sometimes there's just a place you have to make a leap, and there's no way to think about it except for creative. You know, and the same is also true for the arts, or what me and my colleagues did, which in some ways you could call prank art. And I am proud of being a part of that school of prank artists.
Yes.
But you know, we didn't start out to be prank artists. We were just interested in graffiti. And it turned out that there was a lot of humor in graffiti. And graffiti artists have a very clever sense of humor. It's often very mean, you know, and they're the people in the subway who take the Sharpies and draw little comment bubbles coming out of the mouths of whatever Tom Cruise in his latest movie, and write something dirty or disparaging, or you know. I began to admire that, and I began to kind of appreciate the fact that, you know, there was a lot of things I wanted to say to very powerful people, and you know, none of us get a chance.
Do you find that you are kind of an activist in your nature, or you go for the idea of just expression of your art and creativity, or are you both?
I know do-gooders, you know, and I'm not a do-gooder. You know, these really well-meaning people.
An activist a do-gooder?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of them are. A lot of people are just there to be on the scene. But really well-intended activists are people who believe strongly in justice. And I have a sense of justice. But I mean, I do think that my partner Evan Roth and I were much more motivated by this is fun, or this is funny, or I can't believe he just did that, you know, this sort of instinct. So, you know, I went to Europe recently with my wife, and we wanted to go see all the European capitals: Paris, London, Berlin, Florence, Venice, Rome, and we wanted to go see all the beautiful art in all these cities. And while we were there, we licked the paintings.
You licked the paintings? Like actually with your tongue? Like
we leaned in to inspect their beauty, and the brush strokes, and then we licked them.
You're kidding.
And we licked a lot. You know?
My gosh.
We licked a lot of paintings. My wife licked so many.
That's crazy.
My wife licked multiple Van Goghs. She said, you know, Koreans really like Manet.
That's too funny.
And so she licked Manet. You know, I was more into Cezanne, to be quite frank. But I like the moderns. I like Duchamp and Rothko.
Wait, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that you're licking artwork. I mean, did anyone see you do this? And why would you lick it? Is it just for fun?
There's different schools of thought about that question. Some people lick to collect. You know, they're kind of archivists. They collect as like an alternative canon. I like this work and I like this work. You know, so I'm going to lick this and this one, you know. And other people.
I mean, you can take a picture or get a, you know, postcard.
You could, but you know what?
something.
Honestly, you can't take pictures in most museums these days. You're not allowed to take pictures. You're not allowed to touch. You're not allowed to interact. There's a very strong barrier between the audience and this artwork that was oftentimes made by people who were not appreciated by the institution. So that's another reason people do it, because they, as artists, feel they have a stronger connection to the art than the curator did. And while that may be true, and I think in some cases, myself, I look for the power, because there really is an exhilarating moment when you look at an artwork that, I mean, Andy Warhol, you know, when I looked the Warhol, his self-portrait in the Tate Modern.
Okay.
Ooh, this exhilarating feeling, and you feel, you know, quite alive, and you walk outside and, you know, the trees, you can smell the leaves, and, you know, the wind feels fresher and more vivid, and, you know.
How did you get the idea to lick? Was this something that while you were admiring this artwork, you just got too close and then you just did
My
it for
tongue
fun?
accidentally slipped out.
Like,
that sounds like that sounds like a story I've probably heard someone tell their wife before. I just accidentally licked it, honey. No, I've been looking for a long, long time.
wow.
I mean, I started licking because a group of my friends introduced me to the practice in 2004 or 5.
Okay.
You know, and
So nearly a decade of licking masterpieces from around the world.
I mean, I've looked some junk too. I've looked some things at people's houses, you know, just something is, my sister drew this, and something just draws you to it and you look it. But, you know, I used to think, oh, it was just me and my friends, a bunch of graffiti artists acting dumb in a museum.
Doesn't
And
it taste bad? I mean,
some of it does.
It's gotta
Rothko
taste
does.
kind of-
Rembrandt tastes horrible.
wow.
It tastes old, you know? But
You
but
don't
it turns
have
out
to
people do
lick
it
it.
all over the world. There's many, many people, and there's artists that do it. And we discovered in the process that, in fact, conservationists who clean paintings clean it with spit.
Really?
They take spit and they spit in the cup and they stick the Q-tip and they dab it onto the surface.
Because it's like the natural digestive aid, like some, you know.
Exactly, exactly, and it eats away the dust and dirt, you know. So what we were doing is actually helping to conserve the artwork and
Love
getting
it.
a great thrill.
I just have to say, given the fact that our show is broadcast in 188 countries, I can't take any responsibility if someone goes after
There's
us
the camera.
to
I'm sorry.
find you.
Paris, I'm sorry. London, you know. Yeah, my wife said, she said, we shouldn't feel bad, you know, because some of these countries have taken Korean artifacts, and Korea said, give them back. And they're like, no, we're going to keep them, you know, because we don't think you can take care of them.
I agree with your wife there, because France, I believe, has still a lot of very important Korean artifacts.
They do.
And I know that they've been in some, you know, negotiations, but in that respect, your wife is very much a patriot, because she was willing to kind of risk it in France.
She went bonkers at the Louvre. I'm telling you, she looked Leonardo da Vinci. At the Orsay, she was like a saliva cannon. She's gonna kill me. I'm so sorry, EJ.
That's too funny.
I'm so sorry.
So
is this translated underneath into
no, it's
Korean?
just going to be in English. Yeah.
장모님, 사랑해요.
We'll translate that into English. There you go. So this is your studio?
No, this is where all the damage to my career has been done.
I love it. Oh my goodness. You know, there's what kind of machine is this? This looks very serious.
This is a drill press.
Oh wow.
This is very serious. There's no laughing about this. Also, by the way, oh yeah, this is.
What is this? This is from a bathroom.
Well, actually, this is.
He looks like you.
This is some of my early modeling work.
Oh no.
You know, when I first came to Korea.
Wow. Your head is a much better shape than his, because he's got a really fat head.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's actually very true. That's a good point. You made a good point.
So that's when you were extremely back head fat heavy?
Yeah, you know, dieting is so.
Yes. So this is where all the magic happens, I imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things like, you know, light bulbs. Whoa! This is for a project that I did with an architecture firm called Urban Tainer.
Okay.
We made an inflatable light bulb.
Oh, wow.
This was kind of fun.
And that didn't melt at all?
No, it was lit from the inside by LEDs,
Oh.
so not using traditional,
Okay.
you know, carbon fluorescence or whatever. And then we became really interested, and I did another project with this architecture firm called Urban Tainer that involved combining jibbul, you know, it's Korean traditional straw craft.
Yes.
And this is called a keran kuromi, so egg basket that they would traditionally sell in like Shijang in the market. They would sell these eggs this way. And so I just thought this was such an interesting and strange design, you know, but also recyclable and, you know, no post-consumer waste, you know, because it's just straw that dies. And so we started making these sort of lighting product that would somehow elicit this memory.
This is like great for Easter.
Great for Easter.
Great for Easter eggs.
This is true. Easter very popular in Korea.
Yes. Actually, you can make it more popular next year. How's that?
Yeah, maybe so. I'm a man of many masks.
Oh my goodness. Is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
That's you. Can I see this? Okay, now, you know, I'm not as tech savvy and creative as you are, but maybe if I put this on, I will, you know, get all the chi.
You will become bald instantly.
Look at me. Hello. Hi. How are you?
Yeah.
Welcome to the interview.
I'm sorry I forgot to tell you that you'll now have a gastrointestinal
dressed
problem.
up as James Powderly.
I don't want to intimidate you with the science of it or anything, because this involves a lot of big words that you probably couldn't pronounce on this show, you know.
Possibly not.
It's called an LED throwy. And you combine a battery and an LED and a piece of tape.
I feel like Einstein already, just being able to experience this.
It's pretty good.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
You know, I had no idea that before the show that you were the one who actually helped invent the throwies. Like I was able to do this like stateside. So
really, you were involved in a throwy thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was a long time ago. Wow. It was fun, and we were all instantly embarrassed by it. But it may be that I actually, you know, spend the rest of my life being known as the guy who tried to take credit for putting an LED on a battery.
I love this. Can I see? Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I really love the ones where people modified it to have that taxidermy version.
The LED rat throwy? Oh, cool. Yeah. People are crazy, right?
Wow.
The people that did that, the woman that did that is like actually a very talented technologist and one of the co-founders of Instructables, the website that we initially launched this project on. So the world is filled with weirdos.
Wow.
Every corner has at least 50.
Well, thank you, Einstein. Is that what I think it is, the EyeWriter?
This was one of the original mock-ups for the EyeWriter.
Gosh. Wow. That looks a little different than what I saw on, I think, online. Oh.
Yeah.
It's a little sad.
Like I say, this is early.
Yeah, okay.
This was small and early.
Oh, can you test it out for us?
Well, there's not much testing to go here, but, you know, the way this works is that the camera, which is actually a camera from a video game console, is just mounted with, you know, cheap material that you can find almost anywhere, and then points at your eye. Wow. And then tracks the movement of your eye. Yeah. And then it's spit into a computer that's running software. And
this is extremely inexpensive, right? Like you can make this for less than $50?
Yeah, the camera is the only thing that's expensive. Everything else you can find at any, you know, Home Depot style mom and pop store in Korea.
So if I don't want to use a mouse anymore, then I can just go ahead and try using this.
Have fun
First,
with that.
it has to be stylish though. Is this stylish? Does this look good on me?
It looks more appropriate on you than me, that's for sure.
Do I look creative with this? Here. And so basically you have to look into this, or you look at a certain object somewhere out there, and then this just tracks the movement.
You just look anywhere.
Yeah. So I look there, I look there, I look there. Okay. I think I can kind of get the hang of this, but it has to look, I think, pretty first.
No,
for me.
we'll try. We'll try to do better.
No, seriously, this is really an incredible invention, and I think that I'd like to be able to see something. Is that something that you developed too?
This is a bracelet I used to wear. Sometimes I wear it to Samsung, you know?
That's your bracelet.
Yeah, it's just
a handcuff.
It's kanji style, you know?
I love it. Wow. Starting a gangster and criminal jewelry trend.
Gangsters show off that they've been to jail. I got busted once. It's pretty cool, I think.
This is too cool. James, thank you so much for showing me your lab, your studio. I mean, I think that so many people have probably been curious to kind of delve into, you know, where you do your stuff, and thank you.
Anytime. Anytime.
Awesome. So I'll stop by another day and actually test out the EyeWriter maybe?
No, day.
Another day.
I'll give you the door password.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. You've traveled all over the world. You've lived
every
in
country.
So many.
Every city.
So you're probably about 300
Except
years old
Tehran.
then.
You know.
And you've lived all over the world, and to choose to live in Asia, especially where right now Korea is really the hip place to be. Do you feel that this is a place that a lot of non-Koreans really have yet to find out about?
Well, I mean, I do think that. I mean, I don't know. You know, they do those street interviews where they ask Americans, "Where's Kansas?" and they can't point to it on a map. So, I don't know what your average American would know about Korea. You know, I mean, certainly the news that comes in tends to skew towards the, you know, conflict or
North Korea.
yeah, or other, let's say, bad news. But yeah, this K-wave thing is getting pretty crazy, and so now I have friends asking me questions like, "What's the deal with the situation between Korea and Japan? Why is there tension there?" People from my hometown, and I'm like, "This is a little bit more complicated than a Facebook, you know, the Facebook comment can really encapsulate." But there's curiosity getting piqued, and so that's good because, you know, especially from my country, Urinara, you know, my country, the United States, and Korea have a long history together. You know, a history of, you know, allegiance and friendship and tension, and, you know, it's complicated, and so it's one of the countries that Americans should know about because a lot of my people my grandfather's age and even my father's age have spent time in Korea. And in fact, my father served in the army in Korea, and my grandfather served in the Korean War. So you've had 3 generations of men in your family be in Korea, so I guess it seems almost like a natural way for you to, you know, kind of come back here. Did your father or grandfather ever have a chance to come back to Korea after those times? My father did come back to Korea. Really? He came to my wedding, and yeah, he thought it was crazy. Wow. How long had it been since he's been here? He left Korea in 1970. Wow. So, what was his reaction? I mean, it's such a different country in so many ways. I mean, he just went crazy on the food. You know, it was like seeing a baby being separated from their pacifier for 4 decades. You know, He tried, you know, all sorts of different types of food, and we went to Jeju-do as well for my honeymoon. Me, my wife, my father, my mother, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. That's a very large honeymoon. Yeah, it was super romantic. I can imagine. Well, I hear that you also had a very traditional Korean wedding. Is that right? I did have a Korean wedding. Wow. I was married in humble. And
I bet you looked real handsome.
I looked very funny. Very funny. Traditional wedding service in the middle of the hottest days of summer this year.
Oh my goodness.
It was intense.
Wow. So a super traditional Korean wedding and a really fun romantic wedding, or I bet. And I'm sure we have some photos to share with everyone about that
Yeah,
too.
you can have them all. We're going to go back to the house and we're going to go through the slide presentation. All 4,649 photos. Which, by the way, you know, my wife is a fan of horror movies. In fact, she only likes horror movies.
Only?
Yeah. I mean, now that she's pregnant, she's we're watching some romantic comedies, you know, because she's hormonally a little sensitive. But normally she just hates that stuff.
Wow.
And she only likes horror, blood, violence, zombies, gore, you know, this type of thing. And so our wedding photos, you know, that's sort of the traditional like 결혼식 사진, you know, these Korean wedding photos where it's like you're sort of kissing, you know, and they take the photos. Ours were in zombie makeup. So I wore a zombie costume, you know, and she was like a Ju-on, like the sort of Grudge style ghost. Yeah, it's great. People see these photos and they just can't believe this is a Korean lady.
That is too funny.
What kind of woman does that? Like, it's totally her idea. And now she says it's my idea. This is how marriage works.
So compromising on who decided to start the zombie makeup. But
Or you could call it total lack of compromise and lies.
To bring open source to such a large audience with some of the work you've done.
How would I like to be remembered? What is this, a Lifetime Achievement show? This is horrible.
Interview on you.
Oh my God, how would I like to be remembered? I'm 36 years old, you know? Like, I don't want to be remembered anytime soon. I mean, I want the lady at the bank to remember my face so I don't have to show her my alien registration card every time. But I'm not ready to be remembered yet, you know? I would love to be remembered actually as world's greatest dad. Like technically, the best dad who ever lived, you know? If that exists.
James, you've done so much in your career, and I'm curious what the future holds for you work-wise.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my plan is to continue to work at Samsung. I'd like to work there for a long time. You know, I've gotten to do a lot of things, you know, and I'm not like a really old guy. I'm solidly an ajashi, you know, I'm an adult now. But I haven't got to spend 10 years, 15 years, you know, working on something. You know, I've moved around a lot, and now that I have a kid, you know, I'd like to have that type of stability, and I'd like to finally become like a master at something, instead of just doing a bunch of things kind of mediocre. I'd like to do something long enough to actually get good at it. And so I think I'm going to stay around, hang around the IT, technology, development business. And I'm really excited about having a kid.
Yeah.
You know, I keep thinking about all these different strategies for, you know, trying to convince my daughter that she should, you know, program computers and, you know, keep her from going to Hagwons and, you know, get dirty and go outside and swim in the Han River. Is that safe? Is that a no? Whatever. You know, I'm probably not going to kill her. So
you can always try it and see what happens. You know? You can go in after her.
What's the worst that could happen? You know, so I want to really enjoy being a dad. And I used to do a lot of things at once and focus on being a teacher and trying to run a company and sometimes being an artist too. And this time I just want to do one job, you know, for many years. and then come home and goof off with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and have fun with my kids and cause trouble and learn Korean really well.
It just seems like the perfect type of life that
Yeah.
you've described.
It feels good.
A very happy life.
Yeah, it seems really quite possible.
I'm really honestly excited to hear about what you're going to do in the future, because I think that even if you're working at Samsung, you're going to find a way to do something really innovative and creative, and someone who is a multitasker as you are, I can't imagine that you're going to just kind of be a sellorimen, as a lot of Koreans say. So I'm looking forward to seeing some cool stuff come out of you, and make sure that I'm in the loop there next time you do some prank art. I'd love to join you.
Of course, of course. And you should wait to see what my daughter's going to be like. It's going to be crazy.
I can't wait. Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much for being part of the interview.
It's
been absolutely charming.
Hey, it's been my pleasure.
Awesome.
Let's all go bowling sometime.
Can we do laser bowling?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, nice.